Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan. We're out the Motor City Madmouth, and Jacob, Chris, and I are just coming off a doubleheader. So before we get to the intros, Jacob, why don't you let everybody know in the audience what we took care of and talked about on Pun and Spun It?
Oh Lord, and I'll tell you this: there was a lot of good stuff. We talked about Ed Reed not getting his contract ratified by Betty and Cookman, which we're going to part 2 next week with another guest. We're going to because there's a lot to bring up on that. And then we also talked about as a debate, should there be trash talk in sports? And then we talked about the Savannah Bananas and if they're going to save baseball. So there's a ton of different views that we all talk about. We go into different in our show. It's not just stats. It's not just everything. It's where's the world going. I think without the production, we're the more advanced outside the lines because we're going to different spots.
Well, what I like about that show, as well as a lot of the other ones that we do here on South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, is I love magazine style formats. I really do. I'm not going to sit here and dazzle you with updates. I don't care about that stuff no more. It's human interest. Anybody that's a journalist that can appreciate human interest, okay, will realize what we attempt to accomplish there. So, meanwhile, we have a new person here and hopefully a regular on the broadcast. And I'm just going to call him Con Man because of all the pronunciations I've ever had to deal with over the line. I don't want to sit here and make a mistake, but Con Man suits the man who I'm looking to have on as often as this guy wants. Con Man, you have an open invitation, but right now you have an opportunity to give everybody an intro about yourself.
Well, first of all, Scott and the crew, I want to thank you guys for having me on the show. I'm very excited, looking forward to having a great time talking sports. My name is Michael Concesio. They call me the Con Man for various reasons. I do have a couple of sports podcasts, and I enjoy talking sports. I am 62 years old. Therefore, I claim to be an NBA historian, and I like talking about the old players, the old NBA, as well as the new. But I like to be able to address the issue of the former players, and I enjoy doing that as well. I've been in touch with the NBA Retired Players Association in conjunction, so I'm trying to do that, keep their memory alive, and try to enhance their pensions and all that stuff. But anyway, basically that's about it. I have a couple of sports podcasts, love talking sports, and I do a lot of community things, and that's about it.
Hey, Mike, wanted to bring this part up real fast.
Sure.
Scott's very first episode on Pundit's Pundit, we talked about the ABA and talking about the pundit. We talked about that. I brought this thing up with one of the ABA guys going to the hospital and dying and bringing up their pension issues. That was his very first show.
Wow.
We brought that, and then a few weeks. Not saying that they'll see it from us from that. But I saw that from a USA Today article, and then we saw their pension. But we talked about that. Scott's very first show.
Wow.
Yeah, news for your pundit in my mind is that.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff we talk about on Pundit, Michael.
Love it. I mean, that's just a great show. That's why we were really happy that we paired it up, allowing Pundit to go first leading into what we do. I mean, let's face the reality. Anytime you got a guy like me who's a journalist, and I am a diehard journalist, and broadcaster, George will tell you, to me, this is if you can go if you can write, you can certainly talk on the air, as many have done it. But you know what? I think the one thing that I should point out with Jacob, not only Pundit is good, but he just started Pundit's View, and I had the opportunity to go on there, and that was a lot of fun. And what else can I say? And that's why
one-on-one.
Yeah, no, I love it. Interview. It's a great show. But meanwhile, we'll focus on the task at hand here. I'll go to topic number 1. We're going to talk about Patrick Ewing's struggles at Georgetown, which actually defeated DePaul 81-76 to end a 29-game Big East losing streak dating back to 2021. The Hoyas were 6-25 last season and 6-15 this season. I love Patrick Ewing. I was at the Final Four in 1982 when Georgetown took on North Carolina at the Superdome. When I used to sit at courtside for Pistons game, and I was on there, Patrick Ewing gave me one of the most pleasant eye contacts you could ever ask. I love Patrick Ewing. It's just unfortunate he's struggling at his alma mater at Georgetown. You know what, Michael? we're going to let you be the first one to talk about this one. Give me your thoughts about what's going on with Patrick Ewing and how much longer does he go?
You hit me up first, huh? Okay. Well, I happened to watch that game. I watched the whole game. I'm sure you guys know, I'm pretty good friends with Pat Ewing. Back in the days when he was at Cambridge and Latin, which is out of Cambridge, Mass, and I was outside of New Bedford, about 20 minutes away. So we became good friends way back in the day. So after his great NBA career, I was surprised he ended up going to be able to coach at Georgetown. I was very shocked at it. But he's had a tough go-round. He's had a tough go-round as far as recruiting is concerned. And obviously, the big win they had last night was like, since 2021. And, it was good to see him finally pull one out. The first win in the Big East. How long is he going to last? It's tough because of the tradition of Georgetown. And, they stuck with him this far. Most coaches would have been gone a long time ago, if we want to be honest. But him, having the tradition with John Thompson and the great teams that they had. Right. I think the leash is going to be a little bit longer. But, I watched them, and they do have talent. They just they're always in games. They just can't seem to pull the games out. Even last night, it was good against DePaul. That was a good game. They played pretty well. They got some talent. I think he needs to do a little bit more recruiting. And what his chances will be as far as future, I think he has to at least show some more team wins by the end of the year to show some improvement. And I think he'll be given maybe one more opportunity, then he's got to go.
Mike, I have a question for you. Do you know Mike Jarvis, former St. John's coach?
Oh, man. He was on my show about 4 months ago. I had him on my show twice.
Yeah, I'm going to refer back to him a little bit, especially with you on Sports Exchange. We might be talking more basketball, but I know. Yeah, I know. He's a personal friend of mine. He's been on shows of mine in the past. So Mike Jarvis.
Yeah, he's out in Florida right now. He's out in Florida. Yeah, I know.
Well, he's not far from me, actually, now that I see it.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, he's actually, I believe, in Boynton Beach, was like Candy. How long is that? About 20, 25 minutes away?
Yeah, about.
Yeah, Coach Jarvis is great. He had a tough time over at Florida Atlantic University coaching over there.
Yes, I know.
It was tough for him. FAU isn't one of the. Dusty May's doing well with it, but a lot of individuals that have taken on that FAU job have found difficulty succeeding there until Dusty May had. But I know that Mike Jarvis. I know Mike Jarvis well. In fact, he wished me a happy birthday this past year when I turned 60. But he's a guy that we're talking to, so one of the classic people. And I figured.
And Scott, do you know he coached Pat Ewing at Cambridge and Latin?
Yeah, he told me that. Yeah, he did.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, he did. No, I know. He's giving me all kinds of stories on Patrick Ewing. That's for sure. I know. I had no choice but to ask you, and I kind of figured.
No problem. Love it.
All right, we're gonna move over to. Hey, by the way, Michael, somebody had to be first. It might as well be you. I didn't care. But I'll go ahead and shuffle the deck throughout the show to keep you interested. And then again, I don't think you ever lose interest anyway. So, all right. But that George, what are your thoughts about Patrick Ewing? And like I told you, he gave me some pleasant looks when he was with the Knicks at the Pistons at the Palace. So go ahead, George.
Well, I agree with Conman. He's got to start winning. That's the bottom line. I've seen this happen in Detroit sports over the years. Joe Schmidt, a Hall of Famer, coaching the Detroit Lions. Alex Delvecchio, Sid Abel, Ted Lindsay coaching the Red Wings, Alan Trammell coaching the Detroit Tigers. They all got fired or had to resign. Great players. It's a double-edged sword. I'm telling you, when you hire somebody like that with a great name, the pressure's on. Michigan's got it right now with a guy named Juwan Howard.
Yes.
And they are not having a good year right now, but he's above 500. His team's playing a lot better than Patrick Ewing's team. That being said, I agree with you, Mike. Give him at least another, hopefully through this year. I'd like to see him at least get through next year too. That's my thoughts.
Okay, Jacob.
Here's the thing. Scott's heard me say this. Was it? Yeah, Conceição, right? Conceição. But it's like I like that. I'm not gonna go con man. That's too easy. But no, the biggest thing he's heard me say this to me there's not that many bad coaches. Not too many bad. I'm just gonna say this part. To me, if you're don't have great record, a lot of them are teachers. A lot of them are teachers of the game. The thing about it is that's what Patrick Ewing's had to be because he's got pretty bad teams. But I'll tell you this. Unless you have a better idea, Georgetown was a mess with John Thompson III. Yeah, they were a mess with them, and they just had better records, and it was showed. They just left it right onto the thing, and this is the truth. Unless you have a better idea, I'm giving a decade to Patrick Ewing. I'm going to give it and let him run himself out of it because this is the truth about it. We are talking about recruiting, okay? What kid knows Patrick Ewing could be their grandpa now? Patrick Ewing could be. I grew up with Patrick Ewing, Larry Bird, all that stuff. This could be their grandpa now. Forget dad.
Right.
And it's like they don't have a clue. I mean, okay, you try to show them. Try showing them the highlights. Oh, it was nice, but hey, look at those short shorts. and then look at, oh my God! I mean, good God, they had horrible production values. Look at that video. I don't want to watch that. That's exactly what they're going to do. You show them a couple minutes of that. You can't get them onto this. So now, what do? You got to show them something. You know what he's going to? Patrick Ewing's going to. You're not going to show them. They're not going to come at 6-25. They're just not going to. So this is. You know what you're going to have to do if you're Pat Ewing? Start all over. You're going to have to get the people. You have to win with them, teach them, and win with them somehow. And personally, to me, I don't have anything better. I ain't going to have anybody better out there. It's like I'm not going to do another John Thompson III back again. I'm not going to get that. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to let Pat bring his own legacy away from the Knicks, because no one knows him from that time. If you talk about recruiting, take a look at how they're recruiting Bronny James right now. They have to get a manager to go through his mom, not even LeBron. So you can't even see the kid. So how are they going to coach the kid? And that's the same boat with the way everything is with NIL. So with NIL, it's going to be the same boat. So guess what? And there's NIL going to help with the 6-25 team. So they're not going to be in the NCAA tournaments anytime soon. So give him a decade. Give him a decade to fix this thing and let him get his legacy as a coach and forget the Knicks.
I agree with you. I think that's a good idea. I don't know if that's going to end up happening, but you brought up the NIL. Maybe some people don't know what that means. It's name, image and likeness. Yes, right. Correct. And also the portal. So you got coaches right now. That's why a lot of the coaches are leaving, because they didn't want to deal with it. A lot of them have the old-fashioned, old-school methods, and the NIL and the portal is making a big difference in the NCAA. If you've been watching the games, right, there is no out-and-out team that's really dominating the NCAA. It's because you got fifth-year players, you got the portal, you got the NIL. I mean, coaching is real tricky right now in the NCAA, and I want to learn to see what's going to happen in the upcoming years. But you got to learn how to handle that as well.
Yeah, let me add one more thing to it. I'll turn over to Candy. We have a lot to get to tonight. And here's the thing, okay? I was really disgusted that Patrick Ewing never got an NBA head coaching job because he paid his dues in the NBA for a lot of different. So to me, that was disappointing. He should have landed a job. There were numerous opportunities he could have gotten it. And when he was slated for an NBA job, I commend him for going to Georgetown, but he should have been an NBA head coach. Candy, go ahead and finish it up.
Jacob, you bring up a really good, interesting point. I remember Scott interviewing, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember what player. It was a baseball player. And he was talking to him about the history of the game. And the player didn't know the greats of the game. And I'm like, you're playing a game and playing a sport, but yet you don't know the greats that played it before you.
Candy, that was Mike Maroth, actually, George. And then Troy Percival called him out. So you mean to tell me you don't know the history? Because, at that time, he's a left-handed pitcher, and so was Lolich. And I brought it up, and Mike didn't know. But go ahead, Candy. But I'm glad you brought this up.
So that means to me that they don't watch the game. They don't watch previous. They don't see what the players did. They don't learn from watching games. Granted, they're not their own games. They're games of other players. but they're not going to know that, like you said, the Patrick Ewing, because they're not watching them. They're watching the guys currently, not the guys that played before. So when you're talking about recruiting, they don't know how great they are or what they did. And they're not, most kids these days aren't students of a past game. They are students of right now, what they're doing. They're into social media. They're into what's now, not what was before. So they didn't see how the game developed, how the 3-point shot. They're not learning like from that medium. They're watching their own films. That's it. They're not looking back to see, oh, Patrick Ewing, who was he? Who was this person? Who was the goat of that? They only are. Today's society is very here and now and not looking at history,
their films are even different, Candy. Their films are even different because it's TikTok. It's a minute and a half. It's a minute and a half. That's all they have an 8-second attention span. And those are they just do. And one of the biggest things that and I'm going to tell you this, my nephew and I are close. He's 15 years old. He's the youngest nephew I've got. Mm-hmm. And he and I are close, and he'll watch sports with me, and he gets into sports. He's got into sports more than I expected him to because he's a music kid, and he's very, very smart and all that stuff. He's gotten into it too. But even then, you don't know when he watches the whole game with me, with maybe my brother, like his dad. You know what I'm saying? It's like he'll watch him then, but by himself, he's on Xbox. By himself, he is on. Hey, Denzel. It's like by himself, he's on YouTube. By himself, he's on the quick stuff. And, there's no blame to him. That's the way they're growing up. That's the way they brought up. So then he's 15 and he's going to be into music and he's doing all that stuff. He's not going to be, he likes sports, but it's not going to be the athlete go for that. Just imagine the 15-year-old that's going for that. They're going to be the same mindset that he is.
And what's funny too, people, is that, I'm a referee and we, refereeing the league that has 1,000 kids during the summer. So I see exactly what you're talking about. They come, instead of working on their game, they're on their phones and their computer games and things of that nature. I see it all the time. But like you said, it's the way it is now. It's unfortunate, but it's the way
what can you show them on? This is the truth, though, Mike. What can you show them from the game from back then? Basketball is a way more spread out game. It's a 3-point game. There's the defense is very Larry Bird, every bit of it. Because Bird wasn't a one-on-one guy. He was basically a free safety. Everybody, including Ben Simmons, is basically a free safety. This is a one-on-one thing. Baseball is all home runs and strikeouts. Football is all passing. The best defense in the league would have been 15th about 10 years ago. It's like they all score points. What can you show them now? They'll laugh at the video. They'll laugh at the video quality. They'll laugh at the tight whatever. They'll laugh at the short shorts. And they'll laugh at everything. And they'll laugh at the fact that the game is nothing like it was. They won't learn from it.
All right, let's go on to the next topic. And this one really is pretty interesting. When I saw this on Thursday night for ESPN, I had no choice but to include this one. NCAA women's basketball tomorrow night at 8 o'clock ESPN. You ready for this one? Finally, and this is great for women's college basketball. Number 5, Connecticut, 18-2, first in the Big East against Tennessee, 16-6, third in the NCAA SEC. Here's the thing, okay. What rivalry, to me, put women's college basketball on the map? This one, Gino Auriemma against Pat Summitt. What really angers me is why they did not play for a long period of time. I tell you what, Pat Summitt, to me, was just one of the most unbelievable people on the planet. Gino Auriemma has done a pretty good job. Unbelievable success. What was Gino afraid to do? Watch his mega winning streaks come to an end at the expense of Tennessee? I don't know. Hope I'm not alienating too many New England viewers. If I do, all I can tell you is Pat Summitt was just unbelievable. And to me, I am so glad, okay, that ESPN is putting this one to me on the air. I might actually decide to go ahead and watch this. And you know what, Candy, put Denzel's comments on this one because this is really good. Pat Summitt versus half the country, LOL. Nobody was touching the GOAT. Well,
She is the greatest of all time.
yeah, she is unbelievable. It's just too bad her life is cut short. But I don't know. Is there any rivalry, Michael, in your mind in women's college basketball that to me is bigger than this one, especially in its prime, that put this particular sport on the map?
You have to go with those two teams, like you said, Summit and they had a very interesting relationship. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. They really didn't like each other,
Exactly.
and because they competed, they had the best teams in the country. And if you notice, when those two teams played back in the day, it drew a lot of more attention, more TV ratings. It brought more notoriety to the women's game. So I have to agree with you. Those two teams definitely set a precedent, and I'm looking forward. I'll be watching that game this week. And then you got to realize too, UConn, they've had abundance of injuries, and they're still ranked number 5 in the country. I think Fudd and another player who had major knee surgery, I forgot her name. You guys know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Oh, and they have a point guard who was like leading the nation scoring prior to last year. She's out at the middle of last year, and she's out all this year again. So she's rehabbing her knee. And they had the leading scorer this year, Fudd, who ended up hurting herself as well. So, yeah, I'm up on the women's game. But to answer your question, absolutely, those two rivals definitely set the tone.
Yeah, I can tell you right now what I'll be doing here at home tomorrow before we head out to Daytona on Friday. I am watching this game. I'm talking about it on the air because I'm really interested. No disrespect to Rutgers. They have a good program. University of South Carolina at Stanford. Wasn't it one of those Southeast Louisiana schools too, Northeastern Louisiana? That was pretty good for a while, but then I haven't heard a lot about them. But to me, I can't remember the last time I watched a NCAA women's basketball game, but tomorrow, you know what? I am going to watch this one. And I have the utmost respect so much for Pat Summitt. What she's done to the women's game is just remarkable. And of course, Gina Auriemma has done an outstanding job, but Pat Summitt is queen for me. All right, George, turn it over to you.
Well, I think that women's basketball has really arrived. The WNBA and the NCAA, the women's Final Four, CBS and ESPN have done a terrific job. Those two networks of note, and to a limited extent, ABC, a part of the ESPN family, of course. And yeah, Pat Summitt's was a great coach.
Yeah.
And you're right, they had a sibling rivalry, these two. It's a great matchup. And, the ladies, they're playing every bit as hard, every bit as intense as the men are. And I, for one, like I said, have been very happy with the explosion of women's basketball, not only the NCAA, but the WNBA as well.
Yeah, I hope ESPN gets phenomenal ratings, and I hope you have a great attendance, because I hope that will drive this rivalry back to where it once was, because it was just, in my opinion, unbelievable. So I'm really pulling for a big gate and a sellout, so to speak, and great ratings, and hopefully we'll see more of it. All right, Jacob.
You made a good point 2 weeks ago, Mike. I saw you talking about this thing, and 2 weeks ago on Pundit's Pundit, one of my subjects was one of our subjects that we talked about, the horrible promotion of women's basketball as far as the names. And it's the idea that I saw it on Twitter. Aja Wilson. It was Aja Wilson from the Sparks. She had all-time in scoring, assists, and one more thing, I think rebounding, and for the whole season. And they just showed her face. And the casuals are not going to know who the hell it is, nor are they going to look for it.
Right.
So and the thing is, so guess what? You did this tonight. You didn't even know the names. That's not your fault. They don't, for everything that it has come alive, George, you're right. But they still don't promote the way they do men, nowhere close. Because even a historian like Mike had to struggle with names.
Yes.
And it's like, and that's a historian there. And this is the thing about Pat Summitt. You know why she's the greatest coach of all time? It's not the numbers. She had 1,098 wins. That's not the records. It's not that. You want to know what it is? She built the game. She built the women's game. She literally drove her own bus, fixed her own bus, did their laundry, did all that stuff, had to literally sometimes she'd get to a stadium and they'd end up doing something else at the last minute and have to negotiate a new place at the last second. She had to do all those things to build the game.
Yeah.
That makes her the best. That's not Gino Auriemma has the numbers. Who cares? Because Pat Summitt had to do all that.
Right.
I don't care if I wouldn't care if Pat Summitt had a losing record, even though she wasn't close. She had like 200 losses. That's it. But I don't care if she had 210.98. When you build something, you build it, and there it is. And do you know something? What she built? Tennessee, before a couple of years ago, had 42 straight 20-win seasons. And that's including after she was gone. That's what she built in that program. Do you know how hard it is to win 20? You know how hard it is to have a winning season? This is what fans will never understand because they don't know how to coach. They think that Madden is real. They think fantasy football is real. They think all that crap. They're idiots. I call them emotional nitwits. They think this. They think all of this. This is not true. None of it's true. Do you know? But guess what? 42 straight 20-win seasons. And it's like, and in the midst of that was 8 national titles. You know how hard that is to do. There's greatness. There's greatness that they didn't have any national titles, just because of what you built.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
For sure.
So yeah, this game will be great, and I'll watch it.
I mean, that's impressive, Jacob. Thanks for the numbers.
Yes.
Those are some good stuff, Jacob, with the numbers. All right, Candy, close out this subject.
So while I agree that this is such a great rivalry and it's brought a lot of notoriety to the game and it's brought a lot of girls to play more basketball, there is still such a huge gender inequity between men and women's basketball. Basketball, all sports. I was reading a report that says that the NCAA awards 28% of its annual revenue distributions, which is more than $160 million, to men's basketball the March Madness tournament for the men's side. They award $0 to the women's side.
Wow.
I said, so it just amazes me yet how big the differences are. I understand men's basketball brings in more, but that's because we've promoted it more. And it's more the norm. I want to see more of these sports teams publicize and more media and everything publicizing the women's. I'm happy that ESPN is putting finally a good matchup for women's basketball on ESPN. They need to do more of that. They need to show off the talents because the girls are playing just as hard as some of the guys and practicing as long and as hard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They need to bring it more to light.
Yeah, well, let me tell you what. Go ahead, Jacob.
You counted. You were going off what I was talking about, Candy. So I knew you were listening on that. And see, the biggest thing was that was another. By the way, Mike, that was another pundit's subject. Another one. It was the horrible way that the women's tournament, when there was a women's tournament and it was in a ballroom and then they took 45 minutes for a girl with a blown out knee to get her to a
medical
hospital.
Attention.
And the medical attention. And it's like, I had that one on the pundit too. I talk about these things with this. We all do. Scott does. We get this. But this is the thing here. This is where I call myself pundit's pundit because I'm calling out pundits. They're liars. They're loudmouths. They're showmen. They're not getting anything there. They're trying to shame people they don't agree with. They're getting nothing done by shaming. It's like what I call pundits because I'm shaming the shamers. It's like I'm shaming the shamers when I'm calling out pundits. That's why I'm called pundits pundit. I want that. It means quit shaming people that are not going to listen to you. Get something real done. It's like let's get real weight rooms into the women's thing, which they finally did last year. Let's get those things. Do real work. Quit shaming what's not happening.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. Then of course you're gonna get your column. I was like, oh my God, they're so misogynistic. That ain't helping. Not helping. Oh my God, this is so racist. Not helping. Not helping announce. People don't listen. They're not listening, and things. And it's like we talked about Ed Reed tonight. No matter what Dion did, it didn't help. It didn't help the overall thing. And then Ed Reed lost his job because he called it out. It's like all this shaming and all this thing. That's what pundit is. Let's get something real.
Okay. And by the way, Candy, the Tennessee, the women's basketball team, they won 100 games. 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 They won Connecticut, that's a great matchup, but I appreciate your point about getting these good matchups out there.
And I apologize, Candy, if I went off beat path. I just
No, you're good.
No, you know what? The one thing I do, Michael, is to me, I like every one of my analysts to go out there and speak their mind, and I don't really care. I mean, all it is just time, right, where we have a chance to get our message out there.
Exactly.
I have a firm belief in this industry. You talk until you put a punctuation mark at the end of what you're saying, and that's good. So
I
everybody,
invent punctuation marks.
oh, you did? Well, the content that I get where you have one big run-on sentence that I have to go out and edit. It's another story. Well, we're going to stay on basketball. I told you, Michael, now that you're on the big show here, there'll probably be more basketball as well as other sports. But this week happened to be a lot of basketball stuff, and you're going to find out over the next two before we shift a little bit over the NFL. All right, with that said, billionaire Matt Shibia's purchase of a majority stake in the Phoenix Suns and Mercury is expected to be official prior to February 9th, which is the trade deadline per ESPN. Baxter Holmes and Adrian Wojnarowski. I can tell you right now, thoughts. I want you guys to give me your thoughts on Robert Sarver. He was fined $10 million, is suspended by the league in September of 2021 due to inappropriate conduct as well. I should say that the Suns are 25-24, and they're 7th in the West. And that franchise was actually sold for $4 billion, and the Shibia net worth is worth $4.9 billion. And as George and I both know, that he played on the Michigan State team in 2000, won a national championship. So, when I was messaging you a little bit earlier, Michael, you said you, to me, had some thoughts on it. And then mind you that Shibia is going to be the youngest NBA owner at the age of 42. I'll go from there, Michael.
Yes, that whole transition, I guess they have to make approval by the deadline, trade deadline before that becomes official.
Right.
I did a little bit of research while that whole thing was transpiring, because we know the incident that occurred with the Clippers owner, and so it seems like wherever Chris Paul goes, trouble follows him, or he follows it, whatever he goes. Kind of interesting dichotomy there. But what I was saying as far as the new ownership, I mean, the way that they adapt, like you said, he was part of that 2000 Michigan State team. I think Martin Cleaves was on that team as well.
Yeah, he was actually.
Yeah, well, okay. So I remember that, and I don't remember him as a player because he was a walk-on, but I do remember that after he graduated college, and he fell into his father's, I guess, good wishes. His father ran a mortgage company, and he started with that. And his younger brother fell into the same thing, and now they're both co-owners per se of the the Phoenix Suns, and I think they have 60%.
Yeah, the Phoenix Mercury. Yeah, they're co-owners. Yeah. Correct.
Yes, right. Yeah, they have 60% of ownership. But the only thing that's kind of shaky is they don't have much cash. A lot of their money's in stocks. So I don't know how that's going to turn out as well. And I wonder what the take is going to be once, in fact, they do end up becoming owners, because it has to go through a 2/3 vote, I think, by the deadline as well.
Yeah, well, I think right now, Michael, that's probably more of a formality for two reasons. One, the NBA wants to get rid of Sarver in the worst way anyway.
Absolutely.
And they feel they got a pretty credible bid with a family with a good track record. So, like everybody was looking to get rid of Donald Sterling as much as they could and entered Steve Ballmer. This one will go by relatively smooth. So, yeah, to me, I'm happy for the Suns. They'll get it. They don't need the distractions. Monty Williams doesn't need that. Chris Paul and the rest of that group. So,
and what's funny too is that they as U.S. stated, I think they originally stated how much they paid for the original team in 2004. The prior owners, I think you said it was $40 million, 400 million. $4 billion now. So I guess it was a pretty good investment.
Almost as much as you have, Mike.
You think?
Almost as much as you have.
Thanks a lot.
All right, George. Michael's a tough act, but go ahead. Give me your perception of the teams that reside.
Well, I don't care where the money comes from. I mean, I do care. I don't want it to be illegal money, whether it's in stocks or bonds or whatever. this man is a brilliant kid. 43
Oh,
years
yeah.
old, 43 years old, and he's a billionaire already. Like you said, United Wholesale Mortgage, one of the top rivals, by the way, of Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Right.
And for fighting for the dollars here, especially in Michigan and all over the country with mortgages. So Ishbia has done a great job. He loves Michigan State. He helped also, you guys might remember the Mel Tucker deal. He was part of that to get Mel all that money. Coach Mel Tucker of the Michigan State Spartans football team. And of course, he's a good friend of Tom Izzo and the guys at MSU, being on that championship team, as you mentioned, Mike. I think it's a good move. I mean, obviously, the NBA is anxious to move on from Sarver, and they will be moving on shortly. And it's incredible what these teams charge now to try to buy these teams. It's just unbelievable. Your investment from when you originally might have owned a team is just incredible what they're getting for them now. And like you mentioned, $4 billion for the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. So all the more power to them. I'm happy for them. And yeah, it's time to move on from that crazy guy Sarver.
All right. Before I turn it over to Jacob, I just let everybody know that the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So, whether you're in a bike, subway, or whatever, feel free to listen in on any of those and then some. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube's South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. I need to keep my crews busy and want to make sure we get as many eyes on these people, because the people I bring on are absolutely, as Jimmy Walker would say, dynamite. But no, I'm not going out loud because I kind of really need to keep my voice intact for the rest of the show. So
Dynamite.
Yeah, well, all right, you do it. All right. And while you said dynamite, it's your turn to talk about the Suns, Mr.
That's what's dynamite. It's me talking. No. Here's the thing. We talked about with the billionaire, the whole thing with billionaires, but it's not a lot of cash. There's not a billionaire alive that has cash. Not a billionaire alive that has cash. It is land. It is stock. It is everything, but it's not cash. That has gone, and that has been a storyline that was a storyline on Dallas years ago. That was even on that show way back in the day. That was a storyline on there. They didn't have enough cash. They kept like 0.1% in cash. Everything is land. Everything is buildings. It's real estate. It's all that. And it's like, and here's the truth. If they had $4 billion in cash, they wouldn't have the money at the end of the day to go get the Phoenix Suns. It's just the truth, because the way that the inflation has gone right now, money goes all the way out. The cash just goes away. Go to a drive-through sometime and find out. Go drive-through and how much it is at McDonald's. But the thing is, truthfully, this is changing everything as far as sports ownership. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a lot of different sports ownerships now. It's not just individual people. Like you have Matt Shibia, you have all of those, but it is also there's also groups that are going to be buying it. Where there'll be different ones that we talk about. And Scott and I have talked about that on the show too. The mm-hmm. different pundits. So yeah, we're talking about everything that we've talked about pundit. But the biggest thing about it now is just the fact that you're going to have to behave. You're just going to have to behave. People are not going to be silent anymore on things as much as there's the fun stories of the day. You listen to Ric Flair and all his Biggie and all his stuff from the day. He wouldn't have been Ric Flair if it was in this day and age. They don't allow you to do anything. So do I wish there were, we talk about trash talk. Do I wish there was a little more and people would lighten up? Sure. But in the end, you've got to behave more now, which means that ownership has a lot more of a responsibility. People aren't going to keep silent anymore.
Yeah, true. And obviously, as Michael indicated earlier, we began with Donald Sterling getting run out of there. And now Robert Sarver is finding his way out pretty quickly.
Yeah, but Donald Sterling was also a crook. Besides him being a horrendous racist, that's almost beyond the thing. They would have people with like free throw contests and do everything and say you win $1,000 or to a double or nothing, and then he wouldn't pay them.
Yeah, but we all
know for years.
Yeah, no, Jacob, I'm with you. Donald Sterling was, to me, that he was a disgrace and arguably one of the worst owners in pro sports, anyways. But once the racist stuff came out, then that certainly made it a lot easier to get rid of them. It expedited the process, is all it is. But
right.
That's all it did. I mean,
That's what it did. Exactly.
Remember what Denzel said tonight, reactive. We're a reactive world. He should have been gone a lot earlier, but we had to get reactive.
No question about it. I love all these reference to pundits. I think they're absolutely fantastic. So, all right, Katie, you know the drill here. Oh, will the sun shine in Phoenix about the latest move?
It's much needed. Let's face it, Jacob. To talk about what kind of go off what you were saying, we're not putting up with that. We're more being proactive instead of always being reactive. The reason why we're always so reactive these days is because of social media, because of our phones, because everybody's recording this and everybody's recording that, and we're looking at videos and everything's coming out, and all these, we're recording phone conversations and stuff like that. So much of that is brought to the forefront, and you're being exposed. It's not the days of, I'm so thankful I grew up years ago when there wasn't social media, when there wasn't all these phones and people putting up this TikTok video. Oh, you did this, or you said this, and I recorded that. And in my line of work, I'm a professional. I have to be very careful what I say, how you text, what you say when you text, the language that you use. You have to be very careful because you don't want anyone to take anything out of context. And so nowadays, everybody's got to be careful. So am I glad this is happening? Yes. Is it about time? Yes. Because some of these people that have gotten away with doing the wrong things the wrong way for so long need to be done and gone.
All right, well, we're going to go to our next topic. And if you've ever driven it, the distance between Los Angeles and Phoenix is 4 hours. If you've ever flown there, it's a difference between a trip from Detroit to Milwaukee or Chicago, less than an hour. Where am I going with all this? No, I'm not giving you a geography lesson. I'm giving you a lesson. Well, maybe I am a little bit.
That's my job.
Yeah, All right, but at any rate, that was good. Sometimes with you, Chris, it's hard for me to keep a straight face, and I try, but it doesn't always work. But anyway, so LA Lakers were thrashed by the LA Clippers 133-115, but LeBron James became the first player in NBA history to score 40 points against all 30 NBA teams. Last night, he had 46 points. Let's talk about the all-time scoring leaders. We're only down to two now. Kareem Abduljabbar, 38-387. LeBron, 38-210. Here's where we're going to go with this, okay? According to Pat Riley, neither Michael Jordan or LeBron is the GOAT. He will always be a Jabbar guy all day long, and the sky hook was unstoppable. Well, now this might be somewhat Basket Bros material, but to me, LeBron James, a heck of a player. You always wonder how he would have fared, when you had hitting in the Bad Boys era. But you know what, Michael, I'm going to turn back to you, my friend. When you're talking about LA, I like going to you, Michael. We're breaking you in, and you're doing awesome, my friend. And we're looking forward to having you on more. But give me your take on what's going on with the Lakers, not only with LeBron James in that scoring record. He's probably 5 or 6 games away from surpassing Kareem, but talk about the whole LA basketball scene, particularly the Lakers.
Well, I know we have a few other guests because I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll be brief as I possibly can. Okay. Got to give a lot of credit to the longevity of LeBron James.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to remember at his age, I think he's 38, 20 years in the league to accomplish what he's accomplished, I think is a true testament to, his focus on the game, his mental attitude, and he just loves the game. And to be able to play that long, there's like only a handful that I can recall that played over 20 years. And for him to be as effective as he is at that age is a true accomplishment. Now we're going to talk about Mr. Alcindor. Now, if you guys may or may not remember, Alcindor didn't go to the NBA right out of high school like LeBron did. Alcindor couldn't play his freshman year at UCLA. So you figure, right, if you take those years and put Alcindor coming out of high school, can you imagine the numbers he would have put up? So in that regard, and again, developing the sky hook, which I still don't remember or realize why they don't have him teaching these young big men how to use that sky hook because it's a tremendous weapon.
Especially MB.
It's too old. It's too old-fashioned.
You know what, Tom, man? That's a really excellent point, and I am really glad you brought that up. Let me just expound on it for about a minute. It makes me wonder because, number one, okay, Lou Alcindor, Kareem, whatever, okay, played 3 years under John Wooden and won like heck over at UCLA and didn't play his freshman year. But it makes me kind of wonder, after what you just brought up, how many more points had he have compiled had he have played those 4 years in the NBA where James did go ahead and come straight from high school. Excellent point. So you know what?
Probably 50,000.
What's that?
Probably 50,000.
Oh,
Probably be at 50,000.
So yeah, no, Michael, I'm so glad you brought that one up. I never even thought about it until you just mentioned it. So
Well, I saw Jabbar play, and he was a hell of a ball player. And long before this kid came up from Cleveland or Canton, wherever he's from in Ohio, LeBron. And I'll tell you what, right now, I give a lot of credit. I mean, yeah, LeBron's had his ups and downs. Yeah, he's been fighting coaches over the years, but it's a hell of an achievement. I'm not going to take anything away from him. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and like you said before that, Lou Alcindor for the Milwaukee Bucks, as Candy knows. What a great career. And then Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, just a great man and a great ambassador for the game. And I'm sure LeBron, too, can be called a great ambassador for the game of basketball. But he's had so much baggage. You know, I don't want to play for this coach. I don't want to go to Cleveland. No, I don't want to stay in Miami. I want to go here. I want to go there. I don't like all that stuff, okay? That's excess garbage to me. So, but as a man, as a person, as a talent, hats off to you, LeBron. You're going to hold that record, and I don't care. They're never going to take it away from you. Nobody's going to come along.
Yeah, I actually never thought that record would be broken. So a couple more people have entered the chat room. We appreciate the comments. So,
Smoking Jeremy B, Scott.
Yeah. Candy, put him up there. Let's see who else joined the party. Oh, Will Vogel.
Very, very good point.
I will.
Hey, Will's not. Let me tell you.
Smoking.
Don't worry, Michael. We're going to get you on with Smoking. You got to get on with this guy. He's definitely.
he's a kneecap biter, just like that
Vogel,
coach in Detroit.
I got to tell you one thing about Vogel this week, though, and I will say this, okay? He's been on 5 shows this week, and this guy gets on here. We appreciate him showing up. He's actually batting 5 for 5 this week in terms of coming on this week. And
he's trying to catch up to me.
I said, hey, you know what, though? Kudos to Vogel. Now he's 5 for 5.
I miss loyalty, too. I miss it, too, Will.
Yeah, I got news for you. We're not doing any more the rest of the week because we're going to be going up to Daytona. But Will is 5 for 5. And, of course, Jeremy, don't worry, Michael. When you get out with this guy, he's original if I ever saw one. I mean, he really is. He's one of the
kneecap, good comment, Scott and Candy. LeBron is a great talent, excellent individual, but he needs to stay in his lane. Stop trying to be a player and a GM and an owner.
No. That's probably one of the things that bothered Pat Riley a lot in Miami. And Pat Riley says, you are running the ship here. They let him go. And, you know, Pat Riley's going to be always loyal to his Showtime people. You know what? I think Jacob's been quiet a little longer because, you know, I've been a little more long-winded. We had us 2 60-years on here, or the 3 60-years. So we're going to go down another age bracket to Jacob. And give me
I've been so quiet, I forgot how to talk.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't hold your breath there.
Yeah, right. Okay. Give me a break. Here's the thing. There's a reason Riley says this, and it's just the complete truth. Riley would agree with me here. There's a reason with this. It's because we know the points, we know the fitness, we know all this type of stuff from LeBron. You know, the years that he's put. Riley could I mean, there was 16 seasons out of 20 that he had 82 games with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Means he could rely on him every single night for those years, every single last night, with all those pulled muscles and all those torn tendons, with all those everything, with the ice bags, he could rely on him every night, and then he still put up the points and do all that kind of stuff. And that is why Riley says he's the best. And I can promise you, because he's 74 years old, 75 years old, whatever. I mean, coolest 75-year-old I've ever seen. I'm talking about Riley. But the biggest thing that I'm seeing is that's what he is thinking of when it comes to this. It's like Kareem didn't give him that many problems. Yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right. My dad used to say go into communications in college because I would get a straight A.
You know what, you know what, Jacob, you're right. And these kids back then, they played ball. They played when they were hurt. Like you mentioned, Abdul-Jabbar and Scott, we saw so many of them, Isaiah Thomas. And, you know, these kids nowadays, oh, I'm hurt. I mean, every game, every night, the Pistons have 3 or 4 players. Oh, not available. They're hurt. So, Jacob, you're right on. I mean, in Abdul-Jabbar's days, hey, they battled it out. They played with a little hurt here and there.
Hey,
the biggest thing is we have a subject Sunday, by the way. Scott knows the subject. There's a kid that came 4,400 miles.
Just going to talk about that. You brought it up.
400 miles, and then he called himself off an hour before the game.
Ain't that something?
And then those kind are what's going to, and that's the thing. Kobe even said at the end of his life, his wife wondered why he kept playing. He said, because somebody might be like that and come and see me play. They have one chance. Larry Bird said the same thing. He said Larry Bird used to play for the concession stands, and the ones that had to go make money.
It's true.
He said that himself. Yeah. I used to play for the people in the concession stands and the ones that have to make money for their families. I used to do that. The ones that see me one time. He said that. And it's like, there's where we're missing the whole point of, because of social media. Social media made everything so impersonal because even the players now are on social media all the time. They're not seeing people in person. So they're not thinking of the kids that might come 4,400 miles to see that and go see them. They're not even thinking of it as human.
Hey, Jacob, since you like to talk so much, why don't you go ahead and spit this one about your buddy Vogel here? All right, this is pretty good. You know what?
He's true. He's right.
I mean, hey, listen, this guy puts stuff out there. You know what? Earlier in the week when I did a 30-minute show, he had about 10 minutes worth of airtime in the chat room. This guy. So,
Will's gonna be my guest for my next Pundit View. So, I mean, there's definite, you know.
Well, yeah, but I'll tell you, this guy Will is a diamond in the rough, and I'll tell you, he's found a niche for me in the chat room. He has been an unbelievable asset.
I'm just a rough diamond to myself.
Yeah.
I want to hear what Candy has to say about Lou Alcindor.
Yeah, go ahead. Decided to get this one out, and I'll just mention this, but you don't have to comment on it. Excellent point at Will Vogue. So Will getting a little bit of love. Just keep typing, and they'll all go up. All right, Candy, go for it.
So Kareem played for 20 seasons. He, like everybody has said, they played hurt. He played in 1,560 games. LeBron, in the same 20 seasons, has only played 1,404 games. 156 more games Kareem played in, because they don't take, I need to take a night off because I'm tired, or, you know, the game was much more physical back then.
Absolutely.
You know, the fouls were actually fouls. Like, you remember the bad boy era, and that they had the term bad boys because they were in fouling everybody, but they were, I mean, hard fouls. Whereas now you touch a guy and, that's a foul. That's a foul. You had to, you played tougher. You played hurt. It's just a different era. And like we were talking the other night on Inside the Pigskin about GOATs and comparing, it's hard to compare players from other eras. Would LeBron fit in that era? Could he have played in that era? I think, yes, he could have played. Would he have as much success? I don't believe so.
Candy, there's one thing to it. You're correct. But for him to be successful, don't bring him into a time machine and to do it from the now, because he'd be about 40 pounds lighter because there wouldn't be the diet. He wouldn't be, there would be the diet and the training and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So he'd lose all that weight. That's first off. Number two, he'd be on a stretcher every night because he'd be stuck and then he'd be out of the league because he'd quit. Now, if you start him and go back to a time machine and make him a rookie and he loses and he doesn't have that 40 pounds that he already has now, and he had to learn to play the game, absolutely, because he is that skilled. But you could not bring him to a time machine now and bring him to that day. He'd be murdered in the first month.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I'll say to close out the subject, to me, and if I have a preference between James or Jabbar, I'm going Jabbar all day long. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hey, don't get me wrong. LeBron's a heck of a player. I have no problem. But to me, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Skyhook and all, Showtime, his legacy to me is totally unmatched. And with all due respect, we know in this NBA is a lot softer than it was back in what we call the basketball era as well. So, I'm going to end it right there. I do want to get a little bit of football in, but I can't remember the last time I actually had 4 basketball subjects to lead off the show. But these 4 were awfully good, and I felt that I wanted to address them, and it worked out. But now we're going to go over to football a little bit. Joe Montana, true GOAT, 49ers faithful, that Montana said he went to 4 Super Bowls, won them all with few rules protecting me and my receivers, called on plays, no radio in the helmet, no tuck rule, no Deflategate or Spygate, just me and my man. And then, of course, you have Tom Brady. So I really loved talking to it on Inside the Pigskin. That's why I want to bring it to you guys, okay, and gal. So now after seeing Joe Montana's thing, it kind of made me wonder a little bit, okay, do I think Montana is better than Brady? And you know what? If we had it makes you wonder, but to me, I just love Joe Montana. You know what? I'm going to let Michael have the last word on this one, okay? We'll pick on George Eichhorn first because here's the thing, okay, that Joe Montana won his first Super Bowl at Super Bowl 16 against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I proceeded to win 3 more. George, what are your thoughts when you compare Joe Montana as a GOAT, much less the fact to Tom Brady?
Well, Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, there's a lot of great quarterbacks in history. And the Pontiac Silverdome, which will be remembered because Vice President George Bush's motorcade delayed a lot of fans from arriving for the opening kickoff of Super Bowl 16, Scott. For the longest time in history of television, that was the highest rated and watched program of all time. I'm not kidding you. Super Bowl 16. I'm glad you brought it up. Montana won. He beat Cincinnati and Kenny Anderson at the Pontiac Silverdome. Just a great quarterback. Just, I always admired him. Not only that, but just a wonderful man. And ended his career, Kansas City, I believe, as a Chief.
Yeah, he did.
And you bring up a good point. I mean, he could very well be the GOAT. Tom Brady, it's hard to top him, but I tell you what, Montana was like I said, a great skills, great quarterback. He made the best of his ability, and he wasn't a complainer. And you're right, Scott. All those things back then where they didn't have this, they didn't have that, they didn't have the protection, they didn't have the radios and the ears. It's amazing what he went through and what he accomplished too.
Yeah, a 3rd-round draft choice out of Notre Dame, and it didn't hurt that he had the catch to Dwight Clark when Vince Scully on the call. And if that didn't really go ahead and raise a few eyebrows to get that ratings up there a little bit, I don't know what. Now I will turn over to Michael. Go ahead.
Well, I live in New Bedford, Mass, which is about 25 minutes from Foxborough. So, I'm going to be getting some heat, what I got to say. Basically, I think Joe Montana is the GOAT. If you're going to look back, again, you know what I do when I make comments? I go by the impact. I go, what impact did a player make as far as rating him as the GOAT or one of the all-time greats? And I think that Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, although Terry really wasn't as skilled as Joe Montana, we all know that. But, I truly believe that people view their heroes or their GOATs by what resonates with them. If you're an old timer, you remember the old school. Whereas if you're a new timer, you remember the new school. So it depends on what people's opinion is and what resonates with them. I remember way back in the day, because I claim I'm old school, so that resonates with me more than the younger players. Plus, there was hardly any TV back then, so you had fewer games to watch. You wasn't bombarded by all the cable stations and all that. So again, as I stated before, the players were larger than life. Whereas now you got all kind of cable stations and all this. It kind of diminishes the feeling of it. But to answer your question, it's going to be hard to top. Tom Brady went to 10 Super Bowls, won 7. I mean, it's going to be hard to top. I mean, 7 rings, very hard to top. But in my eyes, if you're going to ask me who was the better player, I'm going to go Joe Montana. Who had the better career? Tom Brady.
Well, Brett Gardaby in the chat room says Joe Montana is the top 3 quarterback of all time. He certainly can make a case for being the GOAT, going 4 for 4 with a lot less technology to play with, but we'll leave it at that. I love the opinions actually coming out of the chat room. I'll go to Jeremy real quickly. When you look at the rule changes to protect wide receiving quarterbacks. Joe Montana was one of the first true GOATs of QBs. And when he says one of the first, I think that's a really good way of explaining it. So, all right, Jacob, go ahead.
All right. Here's the thing. It's Brady. And I'm saying I love Montana. I'm from 84. I'm from 84, guys. So I got his career. I'm 6 years old and I could absorb it. So I've seen the whole careers that a lot of people from my age not. So I've seen Montana, then I've seen Brady. Here's the thing. Montana was a wonderful quarterback. He was an all-time great. The thing about this, though, he got absolutely murdered by the Giants. The first part of his career was murdered by the 46 defense, the Bears. And then he didn't solve the Bears until they got rid of the 46. And it was just the thing. And that's like 87, 88. You know what I'm saying? Until then, they were getting clobbered. And then the Giants, he never had a thing. Remember, we beat 49-3 in a playoff game. And it's like Tom Brady never had that. He did lose in playoffs, but he never had that where you just dominated him. And then you had to get it figured out. He never had that thing. Tom Brady's probably the smartest quarterback of all time by far. He has you figured out. We brought up Bird. He is Bird. He has you figured out 3 steps ahead. And it's all that stuff like that. And you're right, the rule changes, but it's like Brady could have played on this time because he's been absolutely killed and hit before the whole thing, and he got up. So they just call it a pretty boy. But really, Brady's hard to beat because he figures people out before they can hurt him. And look at those records, look at those numbers, look at everything. Does that against Montana? Oh, hell no. I saw 9 of his years. The biggest thing, another thing that goes against Montana, it's not his fault because it's Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh being way too trigger happy. Steve Young. The Steve Young, Joe Montana war where they went back and forth. Tom Brady never had to deal with that. So there's a few things by itself that bring Brady ahead. Not all Montana's fault, but there's those deals.
Candy?
Michael, you bring up an interesting point because we were talking about this last night on Inside the Pigskin, and you said which player made a bigger impact. So my question to you guys is, who has the most MVPs of the regular season between the two? Montana has 3, Brady has 2. Brady can have more yet because he's still playing. But in that realm, if you think of impact on a team, because let's face it, you're playing a team sport, to get an MVP, I hate to say this, you could put Rodgers above both of them then because he has 4.
That's interesting.
Well, it's just a slight correction, Candy. He's won 2 NFL MVPs and 3 in the Super Bowl, Joe Montana.
Correct.
Well, just 2 in the league.
No, I read it was 3 in the league, and then
I just checked it right now as you were speaking, and according to Wikipedia, 2-time NFL Most Valuable Player in 89 and 90. And something that our buddy here said, Mr. Jacob, good point. 16-7 was Montana's playoff record. That can't compare to Brady. You're right, Jacob. 16-7 overall playoff record for Joe Montana, and 3-1 in the Super Bowl. I don't mean to correct you.
But he got Candy,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
He had to deal with the 85. He had to deal with the 85 Bears. He had to deal next year with the Giants. He never beat the Buddy Ryan defense. Mind you, Bears defense with Ditka, and I'm not going to call it the Vince Tobin one. I'm not going to call it that. That was Ditka's. The one with Ditka was good, but it wasn't Ryan. And then they could figure that out. But he never beat the Parcells or the Bill Belichick defense on the Giants. Never beat Buddy Ryan's. That's the whole point. They got killed by both of them. Where there's never been a defense that killed Brady.
Well, the only thing I'll say about the subject is you can make a good case for both of them. I love Joe Montana. I hear he had like 40,000 some odd yards. I realize Brady has a lot more than that, but you know what? They at least have 4 Super Bowls. We know Brady has 7 and Montana with 4, like Will said earlier, you can't go wrong with either of them. Although
realize 40,000 what you said.
What's that?
This is the truth. Let's pretend remember 40,000, just the way it's so different, the way that the people are covered now. This is the truth with this. Right. If for an example, a Mitchell Trubisky made it on the Indianapolis Colts, hypothetical, and got 7-8 more years or whatever, he's got 40,000 too.
Oh yeah, no, I
know. He's nowhere ever going to be a Montana, but it's just a different time.
Well, listen, Jacob, let's not kid ourselves here, okay? And that's this. Numbers today versus what they were before will never be what they are. I never thought that Dan Marino's 60,000 yards could ever be touched. And look, what is he, like 7 or 8 on the depth chart here? So, I mean, those are numbers that were unbreakable. And again, here on this very show, I didn't think Kareem's numbers were untouchable. But meanwhile, what do we have? Today's pro sports versus the past. So I completely know where you're going with this, Jacob.
LeBron's not untouchable either. He won't be untouchable. People just score like crazy now.
Oh, yeah,
he won't be
don't give away one of my topics for next week. I'm going to actually wait for JB and Rick Curdy. We're going to have and you know what? We're going to have a lot of people on with
I got Rick Curdy here. I don't like LeBron.
Yeah, so. No. Michael, wait till I bring you on next week. Oh, it gets more. Like I said, my goal here is to make sure Michael has an open invitation to come on Wednesday nights, because we love having you, Mike. Your first act has been outstanding. So I'm going to go with the topic, which will probably be the shortest one of them all. Okay, and then we have parting shots. Yes, George, I know you were worried about how many. Don't worry. The NFL predictions are the shortest one. We did it that way last night. We'll do it that way again. All I need is just the winners for both, and then we'll have parting shots. Okay, with that said, Jacob, lead off. And San Francisco at Philadelphia. Who you got? No points. Just give me flat.
I'm going to go Philly.
Okay. Cincinnati against the Chiefs.
Cincinnati.
Okay. George?
Philadelphia and Kansas City.
All right, Michael, your turn.
San Francisco. That was a toss-up. I got to be quick.
I think I made things easy on this show.
That's a tough one. Go ahead. You can go to the next person.
No. You can go. We don't have that many people. Next week, that's okay. It's all it is protection.
What is your gut telling you, Michael?
Yeah, what's your gut telling you?
It's going to be 2 good games. That's what it's telling me.
Boy, that was hard to figure out.
Obviously, I'm going to go San Francisco and Kansas City.
Okay, it's good. Candy?
Philadelphia and Cincinnati.
And you know what? I'm going San Francisco and Cincinnati. How do you like that? The road teams come away with wins.
Another rematch.
Yeah, well, no, this will be the third time they will match. Once in Miami, once in Detroit. So I've been riding Cincinnati all day long. But Joe Burrow, you think I'm going to stop now? Nick Bosa on that San Francisco defense. I'm sorry. I said the same prediction last night. San Francisco, Cincinnati, and unlike Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, I'm not waffling. I'm sticking to my plan. No way. All right. Well, now that we got you through this tough prediction part, Michael, because it only seemed like to me that was the only difficulty you had. It's not an easy thing when you're down to the Final Four. All right. So what do we got? All right. Will Vogel's at San Francisco, Kansas City.
Will.
There you go. This guy's pretty. But tell you one thing about Vogel, he's a Spitfire. He's good. Okay, and yeah, he is. And of course, I have another guy like Eric Katz who's a Spitfire too, and Jeremy B. Well, I got a lot of things for you, but they're all good. But anyways, he goes Philly and Kansas City. All right, now since you're new to the program here, Michael, it's our parting shot. Say whatever you want in the world of sports. It either gets on your mind or you want to say kudos to.
Scott, you spoke about the fact that you talked about the reason why Pat Ewing never became a head coach in the NBA.
Yeah.
Well, I got one a little further.
Okay.
If you have the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, which he'll still have for about another 6 games, How come? Have you ever seen him coach an NBA team? Have you ever seen him on an NBA bench? Besides being a volunteer, there is a reason for that. So my complaint is, how can you not have this individual on some NBA team, given his knowledge to help all these big men and the big players, helping them with footwork and that famous hook shot? How come he's not on an NBA team? That's my beef. Other than that, that's it.
Very well done, Michael. Well done. All right, George.
Well, mine is to a young man that's going to the finals. Congratulations to Tommy Paul of the United States. Well, not the finals, but in the semifinals against the great Novak. And they're going to be playing at the Australian Open. Tommy's in the semifinals, not the finals yet. But what a great unseeded, unranked Tommy Paul of the United States. Very rare that we've been having any men's champions or semifinalists in the Grand Slam of tennis. So my parting shot is good job, Tommy, and congratulations. And I hope you have a great match, and maybe you can beat the king. I don't know if you can, but I'm sure you'll give it your best effort.
Okay, Jacob, on to you.
I was a big wrestling fan growing up. And so I decided I'd watch their little Raw 30, just all the legends. And I was a Hulkamaniac, the Hulkster. And here's the thing, the guy's about 270 now. He's thinner than he used to be. And, he looks good for a 70-year-old man. Or going on 70. And the same thing, but he's limping up there, and that might be the last time we see him. And I want to say this. This is what I brought up with one of the shows. It's like the immaturity of the people, whether it's a Tom Brady, whether it is a Ric Flair or anything, to not want to go away. This is the thing. Youth is for beauty. Youth is for greatness. Youth is for everything. It's for domination, whatever we're able to do. Age is for teaching. Age is for the experience. Age is for wisdom. And it's like, this is the thing. For the longest, I say my goodbyes to a Ric Flair and a Hulk Hogan. Those beautiful thing to grow up with. It's a beautiful thing for myself because I'm a kid. But guess what? These kids have their heroes now. They have theirs, and it's like when I make this point about the immaturity of something, it's the fact that these kids are supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be their hero at 70 years old. As the thing, you're not supposed to be the rock star. I mean, much as it's fun to see Aerosmith again or AC/DC or any of that kind of stuff, that's for our ages all the way up. It's not for them. So understand the fact that it's for wisdom. Teach the next generation. Use your age to teach the next generation. One day we'll all be into the ground. Let them take your experience, your time, your everything. And learn from it, and then learn from yours, and then take to theirs. And that's all I have to say with that.
Well done. All right, Candy, your turn.
Professional sports. You've changed the GM position, and you've allowed players to become GMs. Then get rid of the GM position. If you're going to let your big stars call who they can play with and who they can have on their team, get rid of the GMs. Why have them on there? Why have those salaries? Because you're just wasting salaries. GMs have a job. Players, let them do it. They're going to put you with the players they feel best do the job that they're supposed to be doing. And this is frankly going out to, and we all know I'm a big Wisconsin, I'm a big Packer fan, Aaron Rodgers. Yes, you have to reconstruct your contract, but don't tell us who you want on your team. You want all the same players from last year. Well, how did that work out? Did that work out well for you? Did you make the playoffs? No. Let the GMs of the world do their job. That's mine.
All right. Well, my closing thought, because this one really is a thought. As a lot of people know, I've been in this business for 43 years. George has been with me all the way. And I've covered thousands and thousands of events. But This weekend is my biggest undertaking of them all. And I mean above Super Bowls, above a lot of things. What do I mean by that? The Rolex 24 Hours at the Daytona International Speedway has been a bucket list item for mine a long time. I've covered the 12 Hours of Sebring, pretty interesting road course where, built off of an airport. But I'll tell you what, though, as you get older, you look for challenges, okay? And I'm never going to stop looking for challenges, and I'm never going to stop looking for great guests. I'm never going to stop looking for great commentators and everybody that I surround myself with. I'm proud of every one of them, especially those that are loyal. But you know what? To me, looking forward to this challenge this weekend, here's part of my activities, okay? If I get time, I'll do a little on social media. But I'm going to be writing a journal about this event, okay? And why am I going to write a journal on this event? Because I want to make sure in my mind I remember everything I'm doing. I don't know how long it'll be, but I like to write. I've been doing it a long time. So if you haven't seen me very much on social media this week, I've been very limited. Well, you know what? I've done a lot of resting heavy this week, and I got another couple more days before I take on the biggest challenge I've had in my sports media career. And you know what, Michael, Jacob, George, and Candy, this is the biggest, because it involves more time. This isn't just a 24-hour race I'm going to be covering, okay? This event here is going to be us getting to the Daytona International Speedway earlier, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours earlier, okay? And then the time that goes after that when it comes to the post-race media availability. And what are we going to do in 24 hours? Well, you know what? If you're in that media room, be on the lookout for the Motor City Man Mouth, because I got that iPhone and I'm ready to put anybody on here that makes a whole lot of sense. So I can promise you one thing when we come back on the Sports Exchange, okay? I have a lot of stories. I will inform everybody on the network that there will be no Monday show. All of our Monday programming will be switched to Thursday, and I will have a date with my king-size bed all day Monday is what I will do, and I'm sure you know why I will. I mean, it's just the way it is. But I wouldn't live. I always have that philosophy: more than line lives, you got to make the most that you have. One of my other favorite watch lines is Rolex. Timex takes a licking and keep on ticking. I take a ticking and keep on talking is what I do.
No, you take a ticking and keep on licking.
No. I take a licking and keep on talking. That's mine there. But in all reality, this is really what it's all about, man. I mean, I don't care. I mean, no matter what you do, Super Bowls, but this event isn't going to be 24 hours. You know what's probably going to end up being? And Candy be unfortunately having to do a lot of the drive-in, but it'll be about a 34-hour event. So if by chance I'm not able to make Basket Bros on Sunday, Jacob, you'll have a good reason why, and I'll be fresh as you can be. And more importantly, for the last 7 weeks, I still will have not have slept in my bed, but next weekend I might just get to get reacquainted with my bed as well.
No, you want to know what you're going to be like? You remember the kindergarten cop when he falls flat on his face onto the bed after the kids wore him out? That's going to be you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're right. I'll probably go as far as my Diet Mountain Dew will take me is what I'll do, or Diet Coke, because I won't be shortage of things to say, and I won't be shortage of caffeine. And I do want to point something out before I turn over to Candy to finish it up. It's coming up probably tomorrow night. We're going to release that. I did a one-on-one interview on No Limits with a guy by the name of Graham Goodwill. And this guy here, as I mentioned, has covered 89 24-hour races. And he was giving me pointers, and he's going to give me some pointers there. Can you believe that, Michael? 89 24-hour races. I don't count some of the other ones that are a little shorter than that. And I'm doing
You could do that, Mike. That's no problem. You could do that.
So I got to tell you, folks, I am looking forward to it. So I'm going to enjoy the friendly confines of where I'm at now, because it's going to be a wild ride this weekend. And I am sure I'll have a very attentive audience on next week's edition of the Sports Exchange, as well as the other ones I care to talk about. But I'll be back on the saddle on the broadcast side Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week, because Monday I'm not doing nothing. All right, Candy, Take it home. That wasn't a rat. I don't know what it was, but.
So I first want to thank everybody that's been in the chat room. I want to thank Denzel. I want to thank Brett, Will, and of course Jeremy Kneecap Biting for commenting and being observant and enhancing our show. But if you all like this show, there's a red little subscribe button in the lower right corner. Just hit it. Please make us, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you like the show, you can also listen to it. If you're ever driving and want to listen to something, just listen to Apple, Google, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. We're on, or wherever you get your podcast. You can always go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. If you want to email us your any comments, questions, ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can get Scott on Twitter @TribuneSouth. Again, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel because we are striving to get 1,000 subscribers. And if you'd like to sponsor this great show or any of the other shows on our network, call Scott 954-304-4941.
Or they can email us, Candy, at southfloridatribune@gmail.com as well. So there's a couple different ways to get a hold of us. If you want to sponsor, great. We appreciate it. We're going to continue to build this thing, and I am determined to find the best people on here. I can tell you right now, I got 4 dynamite ones today. No, not the Jimmy Walker version, Jacob, because I was waiting for you to come back.
Dynamite.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm determined to bring on every talented individual that I have a chance to get. And you 4 have been nothing short of outstanding. With that said, okay, we'll let everybody know how they get a hold of themselves. All right, Jacob, lead off.
Well, you'll see me on Twitter as Jake the Pundit, where I completely and utterly apologize to everybody about everything in the whole wide world, and if they feel insulted or offended. I mean, you know that totally. And then anyway, so then I am Sunday nights on Basket Bros. Monday nights right now it's the Pundit Views. Pundit Views, my new interview show. Tuesday nights during the season, Confidential. Wednesday nights, doubleheader, Pundits Pundit in this. Thursday nights, I got a show called, it's away from Sideline Sports, called Yin and Yang, which is with TJ Sanson. We talk about philosophy, politics, psychology, films, and theater. So we're all kinds of different stuff. She and I are making a movie. So we're working with that. And then Fridays when I'm called and, as a backup plan, the Gauntlet. So I kind of stay busy.
So, yeah, I mean, we partner up with Sideline Sports. George and I get on Basket Bros. I'm on there a lot, and George comes on from time to time. And, of course, we really take pride in the doubleheader that we have with Pundits Pundit and Sports Exchange, right, Jacob?
Yep.
Yeah, we do. So one's a good lead in the other. All right, Michael, go ahead. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Well, on Thursday evenings, I have my own show called Sports Corner with the Con Man. That's taped live on the Sports Empire Network. And on Friday evenings at 10 p.m., we've been rebranded. The show now is called Top of the Key, where we discuss all NBA topics, and we go at it. We have a lot of debate and discussions, and it's really entertaining show. So again, Thursday evening, 8 p.m. on Sports Corner with the Comment on the Sports Empire Network, and Friday evening at 10 p.m. Top of the Key on the Sports Empire Network, and hopefully hanging out with you guys on Wednesday, Sunday nights.
Well, I have news for you. Wednesday night, you're open, and I don't control who comes on Basket Bros. I'm just glad to be a part of that show as well as Pundits Pundit, because the people, my colleagues on those respective shows are outstanding. I'm just pleased to be associated with those individuals, and our goal is to stay with them as long as we can. And Michael, we appreciate you being on, and Wednesday night as an open invite for you, all you want. Oh, well, I guess my partner in crime for 43 years, George, go ahead. I'm sure you have probably
author of Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Nice book about the history of Detroit sports broadcasting and all the great that we have had: George Kell, Al Kaline, Ernie Harwell, Paul Carey, Ray Lane, Bud Lynch, Bruce Martin, and on and on. Can't forget George Blaha. And I also can't forget this young man named Scott Morganroth, interviewing Jimmy Connors and Muhammad Ali in the book. 2 great pictures, Scott. You're taking it right on the chin here from Muhammad Ali. I remember that day.
Yeah,
and you have dark hair too.
Yeah, but it's a great book, and it's available with the link on the South Florida Tribune. I write for the Motor City Tribune. I write for the Detroit Monitor, and I am a journalist, just like Scott, and that's a great thing that we're journalists, right, Scott?
You know, well, everybody's had a crack in my jaw. I had Sugar Ray Leonard. I had Chuck Wepner take a crack at it.
And Scott, I forgot to ask you, is Elio going to race and go for the three-peat this Sunday?
I don't know. I haven't looked. I'm just too busy trying to get my rest.
Candy's shaking her head. Yes, Elio Castroneves has won that 2 years in a row. Anyways, have a great time this weekend and can't wait to read and hear your stuff.
Yeah, I'll just leave you guys on one note. A lot of people have taken a crack on my jaw. We had Chuck Wepner do it. I had James Toney. I had Muhammad Ali. I had Sugar Ray Leonard. If there's a jaw to take a crack at, man, this is it. And yeah, Jacob, you know.
And don't forget George Eichhorn and you.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
You took a crack at me.
Hey Scott, here's another thing, Scott. If you want to move, you have complete permission. If you want to move my anything that I write, like any of my columns, over to his nice little Detroit Monitor or any of those other things, feel free. You have all the things in the world for my columns.
No, your columns are great. If you want some, I'll definitely send them out. But meanwhile, Michael, no, it's probably a little longer than you anticipate your first time. Sometimes these shows get a little bit shorter. But to be honest with you, we had a stacked deck tonight with the amount of timely basketball I wanted to get in, plus some heavy NFL stuff. I don't apologize for it. But when you talk about a show that was loaded with your first stack, I believe we really hit a grand slam with what we were attempting to accomplish tonight. So, but that said, on behalf of Candy Ebling, Jacob, Chris,
wait. I want to tell everybody that they can come see Chicks and Salsa on Tuesday nights on the Sideline Sports. It's an all-female podcast. Come watch, listen to Chicks Talking Sports.
I do have one thing that you could do one day. 3 chicks in the pundit.
Oh, there we go.
3 chicks in the pundit. I'm outnumbered, but I'm coming out swinging.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something. I haven't been on that show, but I'm not really worried about it. You know, if they want me, fine. If they don't, I got plenty of things to do. But nevertheless, thanks for bringing it up. You ladies do an unbelievable job. You really do.
Yes, they do.
And I will say one thing, and they all do a good job. In fairness to Candy, she's definitely been in a lot of sporting events, so she can relate her stories based on what we do in the field. So that helps her. But they're all fantastic. So I'm not saying one or the other, but you know, with all due respect, that's a heck of a show. You get a chance to tune in. I believe what is it? Tuesday
night, 7:30.
Right, there you go. So meanwhile, all right, if I've missed anything, forever hold your peace and tell me now. If I haven't, I'll give a replay of the end of the road here. So on behalf of Candy Ebling.
Wait, George, don't get married. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I saw that one coming. So I guess I'll have to try it 3 times. Okay.
Yeah.
On behalf of Candy Ebling, Jacob, the comedian, Chrisner, okay, forget the pundit in this case, George Eichhorn and con man Michael Consatio. How'd I do?
Consatio, yeah.
Excellent.
Time out. I'll get it right sooner or later. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this really expanded edition of the Sports Exchange. And I look forward to seeing you next week with a lot of stories. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Good night, pundit.
Good night.
Have a safe weekend.